Hello and welcome to Forever Olympics on Forever Sports for a wrap-up of the last couple of days of Olympic action as Team South Africa continue to struggle in Tokyo 2020. A couple of very notable performances, but also some more disappointment with pretty much our last really medal hope getting off to the worst possible start and not qualifying today, in fact. And we'll talk that a little bit as well. But at this rate, Team South Africa are probably going to finish with the worst medal count since 2008 in Beijing, where we managed just one medal, and before that, the worst medal count since 1992 back in Barcelona, where we finished with just 2 medals. At the moment, 3 medals on the board: 1 gold, 2 silver, not a single bronze, and quite frustrating for if you look at the amount of athletes we sent. Beijing 136, London 125, Rio 138. And then this year, 177 athletes went over to Tokyo, and yet we've gone from winning 10 medals in 2016 to just 3. So unless we see some special performances in the last couple of days, that's kind of where we're sitting at. And it's not, and I'm not going to really sort of blame the athletes. Obviously in many ways that a couple of them have let us down, but the sad thing is, the more you sort of learn about these athlete stories, the more you sort of learn about, where their journey, it's always the same sort of thing. It's the fact that all these people are struggling with funding, struggling with coaching, struggling to sort of even worry if they'll get there. And that continues to be our biggest problem until these 177 athletes can do what they do as a career, and it can be genuinely well funded, and they don't have, not even do it as a career. As soon as they know on a day-to-day basis that they don't need to worry about funding themselves for the Olympics, going to qualify and stuff like that. Until we get to that stage, we will never, ever sort of reach the heights of the other big nations. We sort of sit here and, 70, 80th now probably in the medal table at the end of the Olympics, which is really not good enough for a country where we've had the best rugby team in the world, 3 times. We've always had sort of been in the top sort of 5, 6 best cricket teams. Even football. Football are sort of that awkward sort of conversation we always have about how poor it is. That's sort of sitting there. That's more sort of 70, 80. But our hockey sides, water polo sides are always sort of top 20 in the world. We've always been quite good, and it's on the sporting level. We've produced some terrific athletes, and yet at the Olympics we go and we just get blown away by countries that in theory, if you look at GDP and then sort of development stuff like that, shouldn't have the capacity or the facilities to be able to outclass us like we are being outclassed at the moment. So it's very frustrating that we sit here and there are athletes there who could be medal hopes. And you hear about, I had to fundraise and I had to pull out of this tournament because I couldn't actually afford to go there and stuff like that. So it's really, really frustrating. So if we look at day 9, that was sort of the last, which I think was on Tuesday. Women's javelin, Joanne van Dijk did not qualify. She was in Group B. But then we had the men's 200 meter. And this is why, if you want to try and find some positives, we are in a bit of a sprinting generation at the moment, which was why it was so frustrating when Sabini just couldn't get that 3rd place and get that medal, because he's really sort of paved the way and put South African sprinting on the map. Even something like Anaso Jobodwana as well. But so Jobodwana, Sean Masengani, and Clarence Munya all qualified for the 200-meter semi-finals, which means we had 3 athletes in the men's 200-meter finals and 3 athletes in the men's 100-meter finals, with Sean Masengani doing both. So South African sprinting is in a really good space, but can we take that extra step? And they all missed out on the final. Masengani coming the closest, and he's just 20 years old. He really does look like a very, very good prospect for South Africa. Ironically, that he was then a part of the horrible relay that we saw this morning. So once again, a case of close but no cigar for our sprinters who fared pretty well to have 3 in both the semi-finals of the 100 and the 200. It sort of suddenly makes you sit up, and it's 5 athletes, and you're thinking, well, South African sprinting is obviously quite good, but we just haven't been able to take that next sort of step. In the men's climbing, Chris Costa struggled quite a bit. He finished 9th out of 20 in the speed climbing, 16th out of 20 in the bouldering, and combined 10th out of 20. In the shot put, Jason van Rooyen did not qualify on Tuesday. However, Kyle Blexner did qualify, the youngster, and was involved. Today we'll talk about his performance, quite an impressive performance, and something that's worth keeping an eye on. Antonio Carney, who's been sort of our big medal, our big sort of hurdles athlete in the last couple of years, did not qualify. He was in the men's 110 heat 5, and Nasiva Mashele, also did not qualify in the men's 5,000 meet. He was in heat 2. Michelle Weber was somebody that we were sort of quietly quite confident about. She swam really, really well in Rio in the marathon swim, 10 kilometers in the water, but she really, really struggled, and she ended up finishing 21 out of 25. Another athlete who I think, and she admitted quite herself, wasn't quite the sort of performance we wanted to see from her. So Tuesday wasn't a great day, and Wednesday did not get much better, if we're going to be brutally honest. In women's skateboarding, we had Melissa Williams, who finished 20th out of 20th. In the athletics, we had Rocco van Rooyen, who did not qualify in the men's javelin. I mean, and he's one of the stories you hear about, the fact that he wants to go overseas and do more competitions. He's had to start a GoFundMe page to sort of get him to these places, and he had to pull out of competitions because he needed something like 80,000 Rand to go and do these things, and he only managed to raise 38,000 Rand. So this is what we're talking about, the fact that somebody like him, how is he ever going to take that next step? He's a full-time pastor. He had to take, leave from work and stuff like that. These are not full-time athletes, and I think that's the biggest problem, is that, we need these people to be more sort of full-time athletes. We've got to get more sponsors on board so that, at worst, or at most, they're working sort of a half-day job. I'm not saying that every single 177 athletes, we can afford to suddenly they can all be full-time athletes, because some of the sporting codes just aren't big enough. But we can't have people who are elite athletes needing to work and crowdfund and raise money on the weekends and coach stuff like that just to be able to get there. Their financial security needs to be secure so they can actually go and have the right coaches, the right equipment, the right training opportunities. They need to be able to, your distance runners need to be able to do training camps at various places and stuff like that. And we just don't have that. In the cycling, Jean Spies came 27th out of 30 in the sprint qualifying. In the women's Karen, Charlene Dupree placed 4th out of 6 and then came 5th out of 5 in repechage. Then in the climbing, Erin Stokenberg came 20th out of 20 in the speed, 17th out of 20 in the bouldering, and around 20th out of 20, so not a great showing there either from her. And in the marathon swim, though, a very, very nice performance from Michael McGlynn, the 21-year-old finishing 8th out of 26th. So a really, really promising swimmer, a bit like Michelle Weber did last Olympics in Rio. Wasn't expected to sort of get that high. So that's a really nice performance. Now, how do we make sure that in the next Olympics he can take that further and he can once again be in and around sort of those sort of top places? How do we ensure that he's well funded, he's got the right coaching, he's going to all the different events all around the world, and he's going to be prepped? So when it comes France 2023, he's ready and he can become a genuine medal hope. And then finally today, we had our oldest athlete in action. Dallas Oberholzer, 46 years old, which is pretty incredible to be an Olympian. He was in the skateboarding, unfortunately finishing 20 out of 20 in the men's park. So didn't go particularly well, but I think that's such a nice story. I think that at the end of the day, at 46 years old, I think the main thing is just qualifying and being at the Olympics. And then talking about a really good performance, Carl Blexner finishing 6th out of 12, so just 3 away from the medals in the shot put. He threw a 21-meter throw with 22.47 being bronze, so he's just about 1 meter, less than 2 meters away from a bronze medal and about 2.5 meters away from potentially getting a gold medal. So also very young athlete, and he could be one for the future. But again, we've got to make sure that we are funding these athletes who have sort of stood and sort of exceeded expectations. In particular, we've got so many youngsters. We had teenagers doing really well in the pool. Got to make sure that they're well funded. They're in the right programs. We've got to fund these programs. We need to have more Tatiana Schoolmakers who can become a world record breaker whilst based in South Africa as well. It's so sad that half these people have to go overseas to become the athletes they are. Something like Chad Leclerc who trains overseas, but it's awesome to then, when you see a Schoolmaker breaking a red record, she's based here, she's got a South African coach. Wade van Niekerk, when he broke the record, South African coach based here. We need to be able to produce world-class athletes. Elsewhere, the men's 4x100, it was a potential medal hope. Unfortunately, Gifley Atlela had to pull out because he tore his hamstring. And as a result, Clarence Munyai came into the fray, and it was him and Sean Masangani who actually ended up dropping the baton and getting us disqualified in the heat. A potential medal hope, and we didn't even get to finish the race. So it was heartbreaking to sort of see that. But I think that kind of sort of summed up our Tokyo, where we left thinking 5, 6, 7 medals could be on the table. Or 6 or 7 athletes could really sort of be medal prospects. And we came back with just 3 medals across 2 athletes, and one who was not even a medal hope, really. Nobody expected Bianca Buitendijk to do what she did, but we did expect a lot more from Wade, from the Sevens, from Chad Clough, from Russell Samai, for example. A couple of these people who we thought could have really sort of, a special performance, they could have gotten there, and just didn't. Then we had, in the men's 200-kilometer race, we had Wayne Snyman, who finished 20th out of 57. That's not a bad performance at all. And in the final event yesterday, we then had the men's Omnium race, scratch race, where David Marie finished 19th out of 20th. In terms of your forecast, the next 2 days, not too many people involved as the Olympics sort of winds down ahead of the marathon on Sunday. We've got Mark Mandel, who will be going off at 10:30 tonight in the men's 50-kilometer race walk. And in the women's track sprint qualifiers in the cycling, Charlene Dupree will be going off at 8:30 tomorrow morning. We've also got in the athletics, we've got the 4x400 relay tomorrow, heat 2, 2025 to 2 at 13:37, where Fanikook will be involved in that. I don't think it's particularly a medal hope, but you never know. It's such a grueling race that anything can happen. And then on Saturday, we'll have Evert van Zyl and Gerda Steyn, who'll be running in the marathon. Not particularly high ranked. Evert van Zyl is currently at 409th, and Gerda Steyn is currently 209th in the world. And we've also got Dominique Scott, who'll be involved in the 10,000 meter on Saturday. But Josh, so as the Olympics winds down, I think it's just frustrating that even more so than the medal hopes, the stories, when you start to hear about these athletes' stories, how much of a struggle it always seems to be to have gotten there. You know, it's always, I didn't know if I was going to be able to afford to get here. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to the competition to qualify to get there. And you sort of wonder, how many athletes do we have out there who are medal hopes and are not getting those opportunities, that are not being back to be able to get there at all? So I think SASCOG, once again, is under the microscope, because it really is not good enough that we've got athletes who have to start, back a buddy accounts just to go to the Olympics. And once again, we sit here every single Olympics, we say the same thing, and nothing ever seems to change. We've got to get more investment into our Olympic Committee. We've got to get SASCOG working better. Even locally, if it's a case of we need to start, can we start hosting Diamond League athletics meetings and getting the best athletes in the world coming to South Africa to compete? Can we start doing that for swimming? Can we get, world championships stuff? We need to be able to host events as well to try and generate this interest. But there just doesn't seem to be any of that. I think that's kind of where the core of the frustration is, that we don't host events. We don't seem to have a big push. It's not like we're seeing, varsity sports are doing a fantastic thing of putting a lot of sports on the map. But when was the last time you saw a big, athletics meet, come and watch, coming down? The South African National Championships happen. We don't even blink. We don't even realize what's going on for the athletics. We've got to make these sports more accessible. And you got to get the broadcasters involved. You got to get SABC, SuperSport, show everyone, and try and sort of build these small sports. There's no reason why you can't go and say, for example, there are certain sports, it literally takes one athlete. You want to get a sport, at badminton, it takes one phenomenal badminton player to win a medal. So, invest in the badminton program and see if you can get a couple of really, really good players. At the end of the day, across the world, you start in the same gap. At the end of the day, as a child, you start at the same thing, but it's what you get exposed to, who you get exposed to, your coaching, your opportunities. That's what then molds the athlete. We have got naturally incredibly athletic people in the country, and yet we can't find a way to convert that into medals and into sporting success, which is really frustrating, because we see the talent in the schools, but it just never sort of seems to kick on. But yeah, that's my little bit of Olympic rant. I'll give you guys an update at the end of the games, sort of where we landed up, what went wrong, and stuff like that. Let me know what you thought about the games. It's been a fun watch. It's always fun to watch the Olympics and stuff, but it's just frustrating because I think we underperformed as opposed to what we've got the potential to do, as we say every single games. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you guys soon.